Charlie, these are our top 3 players from England's 38 win over Fiji. In at number 3 is Henry Arundell. Welcome back to England International Rugby. And Charlie, there's an obvious reason why Henry Arundell is in here. He's incredibly fast.
They have wanted to get him in. His little showing in a training camp at the back end of last season before England went on tour to Argentina and USA, before he'd sort of made that final move from Racing 92 to Bath, that was a signpost that Steve Borthwick really, really wanted him in as soon as possible. And his try actually reminded me of how he set up on the Arundell against Gloucester. And that it's just game-breaking pace. It's so obvious, but same with Louis Bielri, just breaks open games. And it was Rivovo that he sort of overtook to get this.
So I can work out if the Fiji lads just didn't appreciate he was there or whether they were just knackered, because they were they were like semi-coasting. And then Borthwick had a great line in the week about how Arundell had just got through a gap in training that Borthwick did not think was there. And it was kind of like that again. Because, and he also said, I look forward to him coming on and picking off tired defenders. That's basically exactly what happened down there, wasn't it?
That's what the 6-2 is about with England and how they're using that bench. It was 4 forwards, wasn't it, together at the same time today, with Maritoji coming on for that weird sort of 10-minute cameo at the end. But when you add in Arundell to that, the game is stretched open. There are long periods of ball in play. Players are tired. International athletes, even though they may be, they are tired. Pace can really stretch them.
Players get tired. Charlie, number 2, back-to-back Player of the Match awards.
And he's only just snuck into our top 3.
Look, it's
having missed out last time, didn't he?
Look, you have to work really hard to crack the top 3 on the Rugby Bunker's top 3 players. Yeah, Ben Earl, listen, just so busy, isn't he? And I think we saw that today. What I liked was he had that error early on where he knocked on at the base of the ruck. You could see him stood there just pausing for breath, thinking, I'm going to now make amends for this. And he was just busy throughout, very, very lively.
Perhaps underrated as a sort of link player. He played a sort of cut with Finn Smith, didn't he, in the kick return that ended up with the try that put the
Ollie Lawrence break and then it's Genge.
Quite an important try, but he makes smart decisions on the ball in space. And England's game breakers at the minute, as the back line is kind of striving for a bit of balance, their game breakers are in their forwards. Their USP is loading those loose forwards onto the pitch, all of them being really fast, but crucially all of them being quite smart on the ball as well.
Absolutely. I think another day for England's back row where first half you could visibly see Alex Mitchell getting frustrated at times with slower ball. And then they because they have this power-packed bench, they were able to just figure it out and eventually get quicker possession there, and they pulled away. Which brings us to number 1, Charlie.
Which is a rogue one.
Charlie, it is slightly rogue. It's Peter Gusto-Akula, the Fijian flanker.
It's a nice story.
Just making his debut for Fiji today. So he used to play for the All Blacks, won a few caps. First game today for Fiji. Just gave them so much. I mean, obviously there was a really lovely sort of out-the-back pass in the first half, which obviously won me over. But just so busy with his carrying, one of the most industrious players on the field. Kind of a sign as well of how Fiji are getting stronger, as Steve Borthwick touched on in his press conference, around set piece, around the breakdown. The fact that the Fijian jury have been such a success in Super Rugby Pacific really helps with that. But I just thought he really added an extra bit of physicality and dimension to what was a very lively back row throughout, actually.
It's kind of it's good to pick out a Fijian player because some of the collective things they did were fantastic. A Maul try where they bullied and splintered England. A really smart move around the front where they've identified Alex Mitchell defending in that 5-metre channel. Always a pleasure to watch players like Joshua Shuasova play. They were ferocious at the breakdown, sometimes just absolutely bullying England there. A lot went right. And, I think Mick Byrne afterwards was sort of reminded of the fact that they'd gone down to a 20-point defeat and pretty disappointed and almost kind of a bit nonplussed as to how it got to that bigger margin because they did so much right.
Also, Peter Gus, your hair looks brilliant. Going grey is a wonderful thing. That's our top 3 players from England, Fiji. Charlie, it's our top 5 moments from England against Fiji. Number 5, Timo Mayana Vanua. I wanted to check that I got it right. The personal moment that I just enjoyed watching from the stands was him absolutely smashing Faye Reboso after Faye Reboso had collated the kick, and then very kindly just reaching down with one hand, picking Faye Reboso up, giving him a little pat on the head, on you go. I reckon that was one of about 5 or 6 hits that Faye Roboso took in this game, notwithstanding a moment that we're going to chat in a little bit about, where he just got absolutely smashed. And I think the physios will have their work cut out with him.
Too sober. It was too sober, was not, and a similar exchange actually on the floor. So clearly they respect Theo Boso enough both to give him a serious amount of attention legally, and then also make sure he's okay afterwards. But Mayana Vanua, outstanding as the red light goes on somewhere in the stadium. Outstanding for Saints last season. Really good to see him again.
I was going to mention that as well. It was quite nice watching it full time because I didn't have to urgently file anything. Just watching him hug all his former Saints teammates, a bit of Finn Smith.
Awesome.
Alex Cole's just really, really going with the big hug. That was nice. Number 4, that just lovely Peter Gus little flick pass. And I wrote in my notes, saucy pass, and you could probably think about 1,000 moments like that from Fiji today, but for some reason that one really stuck out. I should also mention the Caleb Muntz pass, the really wide one, which led to his own try eventually in the end after Kurivoli's kick. I thought that was a lovely little wide.
They are a lot of fun, that halfback partnership.
Your money, if you ever buy a ticket to watch Fiji, is going to be very, very well spent. Charlie, number 3. It's the Kurivoli non-try, which would have been an absolute belter as well. You brought up when we were just about to start this, Riati's kind of brilliant.
It was Riati's line,
and it was his line cutting through, and then another couple of passes. It was Makala maybe, who then gave the final pass to Kurivoli. Look, it is a knock on. I know Mick Byrne was trying to argue that actually he was still in control of the ball, but it sure didn't look like it. But what a huge moment, because that would have been 26-25.
One of the sort of trendy bits of jargon that players use now, thunderbolt moments. That was the sort of encyclopedia definition of one of those, because they just sliced England. And those trading lines for scrum halves, always fun. Kurivoli was an absolute nightmare for England in the game they lost here, wasn't he? And he was. Shame he didn't have that moment, but yeah, again, sort of ended in credit. Hell of a player.
Not as much of a nightmare for England in the last game against Fiji here as Rava Tamada, who was incredible in that 2023 warm-up game. Here, sadly, he actually started well, but then it all went pear-shaped with that takeout of Faye Roboso.
Crucial moment because Fiji were settling in and 13-7 up at that point. I think having missed 2 conversions too, we're looking sort of in control. This moment is kind of emblematic of how this aerial contest has become, right? And it is wild. And actually, I couldn't help but think of Harry Potter's on Freddie Stewart last week, when if one of them is slightly off as far as timing, and maybe that's the skill, is the timing, but the commitment that Harry Potter had really kind of, he buffeted Freddie Stewart around in the air. Ravutau Mada.
Yeah.
Really sorry. He was so committed, and just that timing wasn't there, and then it could have been a horribly dangerous situation. Bring back escorting? I don't know. It's
bring back
wild.
Escorting.
It was wild. It's so wild out there. It's so dangerous for those wings.
Yeah,
it feels like we've got a big accident waiting to happen.
It's getting a bit hairy. I do not understand how Faye Roboso managed to get back on his feet so quickly and then carry on running. Having I exaggerated when I tweeted out that it was a 1080. I don't know, live when I watched it beneath me, I thought he had spun about 5 or 6 rotations. That's our number 2 moment, Charlie, which leaves number 1, an obvious one. It's Henry Arundell flying down the wing. I think I heard someone say around me in the press box, I can't believe how fast he is. I was thinking, that's literally his USP. He is fast. I think what's interesting when we talk about Arundell is, what else does he need to work on? Is it the high ball stuff? Is it his defensive work? Does Steve Borthwick feel confident enough to back him in a test match when, as he keeps talking about this autumn, and he's quite right to, there are so many good England wingers at the moment, especially with Tom Roebuck coming back fit. I mean, that's a hard decision.
In a way, as we're going to talk about Tom Roebuck again a little bit here, but in a way, I think his injury has allowed to have a look at that option, and that is always the way, isn't it? It's good that coaches bring in these players. I think Arundell was maybe a slightly left field pick, even despite his form for Bath, and the fact that he's had an opportunity and has made an impact on the game in what was a pretty tight, sticky test match when he came on. I think that is, it's really good for England going forward, but it's also quite intriguing as to what they do next. 15, as we'll talk about, I'm sure. The whole makeup of the back line for the All Blacks game is really interesting.
Yes.
The back three, probably, and the back three in midfield. There's so many big calls there. So much balance to think about. But Arundell's absolute USP, as you say there, out and out pace, And for that to still be impactful at test level, that just goes to show, doesn't it?
Maybe he's the perfect replacement, like the forwards with their impact. Maybe he is just the person to pick off tired defences. We'll see. Those are our top 5 moments from England-Fiji. Right, Charlie, very final section where we're just going to spitball and think a little bit about the All Blacks and a little bit more about this game. It was another example of England finding a way to sort of problem solve on the field, use their kind of senior leaders to come on and figure things out. And actually, in the end, they pulled away and they win by 20 points. So it's comfortable. It didn't feel comfortable for probably the first, 50 minutes. But once again, the bench comes on. They're figuring things out and finding out ways how to win games, aren't they?
They've got, it was a very similar pattern, very similar assets came to the fore for England. That bench and those back rows, particularly the pace and mobility that they've got. But they also very importantly have a very well drilled set piece that stays well drilled and seems to stay robust over the course of 80 minutes. Will Stewart wasn't in 23 tonight. Sam Underhill wasn't. I wonder whether they missed Sam Underhill a little bit, just that stopping power, to use another kind of bit of jargon that is very kind of that players use themselves. But Sam Underhill has that in spades, and I just always think when their defence is that little bit more imposing when Sam Underhill's there. They were bullied in patches, and I think that will be a little bit of a concern. And I just wonder what they do. They just did look a little bit lightweight with Dingwall outside. Not that Finn Smith's defence was exceptional. I thought,
it was.
But I think they're just a little bit lightweight there with Marcus Smith as well at 15. I wonder whether it's one or the other, Dingwall or Smith.
Freddie Stewart is fit and available by all accounts. He trained on Friday, so he's back in the mix if they want to go with him. Tom Roebuck seems to be back in the mix if they want to go with him.
I think they would have loved Elliot Daly to be fit today,
just
to have given Daly that first game since the Lions tour and made him that option.
13's tricky. I wonder whether I thought Lawrence was good, maybe not spectacular until that big run, and the big run is obviously, an incredible piece of skill. Do you feel confident enough putting Freeman back in 13 against the All Blacks, or do you stick with him on the wing, which right now is his better position?
I think they need pace at 13. I think defensively, certainly they need that, because what New Zealand have been very good at is that wide to wide stuff, ball movement. That's how they're not getting themselves out of jail, but that's where their best moments are coming, moving the ball expansively, and they are going to try and stretch England. That's going to be the battle, and it's going to take a lot of. We're going to need pace, agility in that 13 channel defensively, and that was something that Freeman did quite well, understatedly, at 13. It's not ideal. The injuries, meaning that he couldn't really build up momentum in that position, haven't been ideal. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes back to that with Roebuck at 14. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a reprisal.
Keeps mentioning Roebuck so much that I'm pretty certain that Roebuck is going to start. It's maybe just how Faye Robosa comes through this, and I don't think he would start Henry Arundell, but I mean the pace there is undeniable. George Ford or Finn Smith, that's another tricky one. Kelly himself was good at number 8. I think he's incredibly good at beating the first man with any sort of ball carry. It's more whether they just feel the balance is a bit off, and like you say, bringing Underhill back in. There's a few questions, but I think they have nice problems. I think that's where England are at the moment. They have nice issues, nice kind of selection quandaries for Steve Borthwick to mull over, which is very, very important. Any final thoughts from this?
Well, I think the way it was termed, I was sat next to Will Greenwood, Telegraph columnist, and the way he termed it was that it's sort of nice to be 9 wins in a row.
Yeah, best run since 2017, isn't it?
Next week is the World Cup final of this year for them. I thought they paid New Zealand a little bit too much respect last year in those 3 games. Yeah. They had enough to. I think they should be very, very disappointed that they didn't nick at least one in New Zealand and didn't win the home game, obviously. And what sticks in my mind about that is we get amazing access, don't we, from the This Rose documentaries. You see Borthwick's framed it to the players. It was something like, you really scared them. And I just think that's the wrong. Yeah. I don't think they'll have that attitude this week, because I think the result is pretty important. New Zealand are off the back of a seriously taxing year. They have some players playing exceptionally well. Damien McKenzie, Wallace Atiti, Will Jordan. But England should impose themselves, to have enough good patches to take that game deep and to get a good result there. I think
you'll be bored of hearing me say it. No win over the All Blacks since 2012. Got to happen at some point. It's got to happen soon. Thanks very much, everybody. We'll see you in the week.